let's look to the next meditations where he talks about material things, which are substances, just like the mind is a substance. And a substance is, like I said before, just an entity that can't be changed and has essential properties, right? So mind is a substance, body is a substance, God is a substance. To be clear, it's the essential properties that can't be changed. So he gives this idea of a triangle. He says this triangle is, he can conceive of it. He can conceive of it, and it's not mind dependent. So what he says, there's nevertheless, this is page 23, column 2, there's nevertheless in this figure certain determinate nature, form or essence, that's substance, which is immutable and internal, substance, and which I have not invented, and which no wise depends on my mind. So he's saying, look, we start here, start with the idea of a triangle. This is mind independent, it's a substance, and it is outside the mind. Right? It didn't come through the senses. And he gives the objection. He's like, look, I can form in my mind an infinite of other figures regarding which we cannot have the least conception of there ever having been objects of sense. But he doesn't give an example. So whatever he means there is beyond me. Let's go back to this. So he starts out like laying the groundwork for saying like there are mind independent things, but now we got to get to the material, right? Because the body is a material substance. Then he talks about existence, and he says like, so this in certain types of logic just means there is. It's existence, called the existential quantifier. He says there exists, God exists, and this property of existence applies to God. He's conceiving of existence as a property here, and it's an essential property of God. Nobody created God. Nothing created God. It's essential to him that he exists. Okay. He goes on to talk about like, he's like, this isn't begging the question, right? This isn't me defining stuff in such a way that it can't be the case, that it could be any way different, right? That's an informal fallacy. He's saying that's not what I'm doing. This isn't sophism, right? Because it's like imagining a mountain and a valley. Just because you can imagine it doesn't make it the case that it exists, right? It's just a true idea, not an actual idea. But you can't imagine the mountain, he says, without the valley, right? This, he says, is impossible. Imagine these, right? They always come together. Same with God. You imagine God, he exists. All right, existence is an essential property of God. All right, what he's saying here is there's a difference between a false supposition and a true idea. So like a false supposition is just something that, you just could come up with, right? Right, but it's a true idea that God exists, that existence is a property of God. So he lays the groundwork. Then he comes in and he starts talking about he's trying to say here that like this idea of God that we have is a true idea. It's not pure supposition. It's a true idea, and it's the sort of thing that would be true whether or not we were in a dream, for instance. He deals with the dream objection. So it's true. It's knowledge that God exists, right? That there are these other things that are not dependent on the mind, right? And we know this, we can know this because of this, right? He says, page 25, column 2, and now that I know him, I have the means of acquiring a perfect knowledge of an infinitude of things, not only of those which relate to God himself and other intellectual matters, but also of those which pertain to corporeal nature insofar as the object of pure mathematics. So now we can move on to 6, where he says of the existence of material things and the real distinction between the soul and the body. This is a pretty interesting section. He gives reasons to doubt the senses. But what's really important in this section, this is mind-body dualism. All right, the type of creature we are, according to Descartes, is a mind and a body. And this is essential to us and this is not.